If you fracture a bone, modern medicine is, well, it's beautifully binary. You get an X-ray, the doctor points to a jagged white line, they put a cast on it, and, you're on your way.
Right. It's a physical problem. It
Yeah.
has a very visible, clear solution.
Exactly. But the moment you step out of that hospital and, back into the relentless, buzzing reality of the modern world, you are dealing with a landscape that has zero clear X-rays.
Because you're dealing with the human mind.
Yeah, the invisible machinery of your own psychology.
Right.
So, welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are wading directly into those turbulent waters.
And we have an incredible source text to guide us today.
We do. We're looking at Focus on What Matters. It's a collection of modern Stoic letters by Darius Foroux. And if you listening right now, if you've ever felt this low-grade hum of anxiety, or you feel perpetually distracted, emotionally drained, or just overwhelmed by the 21st century, this analysis is completely custom-built for you.
Yeah, it really operates as a highly tactical survival guide. What we're doing today is taking these ancient philosophical frameworks and, well, we're essentially crash testing them against our hyper-distracted, perpetually online reality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today is ambitious. We're going to deconstruct the tools you need to master your inner world.
Right, your emotional regulation, your focus, your self-worth.
Exactly. So that you can successfully conquer the outer world. The messy stuff, wealth, career, human relationships. We're drawing on the heavy hitters here, like Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius. But I want to be super clear right out of the gate. We are not telling you to sell all your possessions and move into a cave.
No, not at all. That misconception of the emotionless stoic living on a rock is probably the biggest barrier to this philosophy.
Yeah, totally.
The text actually addresses this overarching philosophical clash right away. It positions it as a battle between two fundamental drivers of human behavior. On one side, you have hedonism.
The pursuit of pleasure.
Exactly. The aggressive avoidance of pain. It's the desire to just be maximally comfortable at all times. And if you look at our current society, it's almost entirely built on a hedonistic framework.
Oh, for sure. It's hyperconsumption, instant gratification.
Endless escapism.
It's the architecture of our apps, like endless scrolling, algorithms feeding us exactly what we want the second we want it. It's like society is engineered to keep us chasing that next tiny dopamine hit.
And the author highlights the fatal flaw in that engineering. When your operating system is driven by pleasure, you just inevitably trap yourself on the hedonic treadmill.
Right. You get the new phone, you get the promotion, and you feel great for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, you get a temporary spike. But human beings are adaptation machines. Your baseline normalizes so fast, suddenly that new car is just the car you drive to work, and you need something even more expensive to get that same spike of joy.
It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. You're just a hostage to your own escalating desires.
Exactly. And counter to that endless, exhausting cycle, the text presents stoicism, but not as a punishment. It frames it as finding profound pleasure in self-reliance, doing your duty, and just mastering your own mind.
It's the radical idea that you can have unbreakable peace of mind while still participating in a capitalist society. You can build wealth, be ambitious, but do it from inside an impenetrable psychological fortress.
Right. The Stoics called this the inner citadel. You fortify your mind so well that external circumstances, a market crash, a bad boss, they can't breach the walls.
And the foundational rule of that fortress is the division between what is in your control and what is outside of it.
Yes. And translating that to the modern day, the absolute front line of that battle is where we choose to spend our time and our attention.
Yeah, the author shares this story that, I actually laughed out loud when I read it. He describes sitting down to start his day, and he casually clicks on a random article about Bitcoin. Just a quick glance.
We all know how that goes.
Right. 30 minutes later, he is miles deep in a Wikipedia rabbit hole. He's reading about fiat currency, the gold standard, medieval banking history.
Yeah.
Half an hour of his finite life is just vaporized, never to return. I've totally done this. I'll open my phone for an email. An hour later, I'm watching a documentary on how to forge a samurai sword.
It's funny, but from a Stoic perspective, time is our singular, most precious, non-renewable asset.
Because you can't earn it back.
Never. You can lose all your money and earn it back in a decade, but you cannot get those 30 minutes back. The ancient philosophers would view our digital habits with absolute horror just because of how cavalier we are with the only currency that actually dictates our lifespan.
It's terrifying when you frame it like that.
Oh,
Our attention is the currency of our lives, and we're just throwing it down a drain.
Yeah.
But the book goes further than just harmless trivia. It tackles the emotional devastation of what it calls useless information.
right.
The COVID debate story. Yeah. He talks about getting into this heated debate with a friend over COVID lockdowns, arguing about mandates, international policies, stuff neither of them could control. And he walked away with this heavy, toxic energy that just ruined his whole afternoon.
The psychology there is rooted in the affect heuristic. The text really brings this to the forefront. It's basically a mental shortcut our brains use. It dictates that your current emotional state heavily biases your cognitive processes and risk assessment.
Wait, let me make sure I'm getting this. You're saying if I read something that makes me angry, it actually changes how my brain calculates decisions later in the day.
Precisely. If you consume outrage-inducing news, you flood your system with stress hormones, you induce an angry state, and because of the affect heuristic, your brain uses that manufactured fear as the lens for every subsequent decision.
Wow.
You become risk-averse, suspicious of colleagues, irritable with your family. By consuming useless, negative information about things you don't control, you systematically poison your own cognitive well.
It's like downloading malware into your own brain. And this is where I want to push back on the source material. This is a huge sticking point for people. The advice to ignore the news because we don't control it, doesn't that just breed ignorance? Like, if I ignore global suffering just to protect my inner citadel, don't I become an apathetic, useless citizen?
That is the most common critique of Stoicism. But a close reading shows that's a misinterpretation. It doesn't mandate apathy. It mandates the intelligent sequencing of your energy. It's about proactive living versus reactive living.
Okay, walk me through that sequencing. How does that work?
The text visualizes your influence as concentric circles. The outermost circles are macro events, global economics, foreign wars. Most people dump 90% of their energy there. They shout at the TV, they argue on social media.
Which changes absolutely nothing.
Exactly. It changes nothing but destroys your peace. So you have to invert the process. You start at the absolute center, the innermost circle, your own mind and immediate actions. Can you regulate your temper today? Can you do your work with integrity?
Secure the inner circle first.
Right. Once that's secure, you step to the next circle, your family. Can you help your partner today? Then you step to your community.
I see. So it's not that you don't care about the world. It's that you refuse to yell into the void when you could be doing actual tangible good right in front of you.
The Stoic views broadcasting outrage as an ego-driven vanity metric, helping a neighbor, being stable for your family. Those actions actually alter the fabric of society.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And that concept of controlling attention in the present perfectly sets up the next hurdle in the book. Because if attention is the currency we spend right now, we have to look at how we invest mental energy into the future.
The trap of expectations.
Exactly. Most of our anxiety isn't about what's happening right this second. It's a projection. It's a narrative we write about what we expect will happen tomorrow. We are brilliant at setting traps for ourselves. The author brings in Epictetus here.
And Epictetus is such a great source because he wasn't some wealthy aristocrat. He was born into slavery.
Right? He endured profound hardship, gained his freedom, and became this blunt, penetrating mind. And he delivered this brutal truth. It is foolish to desire or expect things that require the compliance of other people.
Because if you do, you voluntarily surrender the keys to your psychological stability to a stranger. When you anchor your happiness to an external outcome, like a boss or a market, you choose to live in vulnerability.
The author gives a super transparent example of this. He talks about pitching a book proposal to traditional publishers. The publishing industry is just built on subjective opinions and massive delays. He spent a year crafting this proposal, and he just got a barrage of rejections.
But he noted his baseline mood remained stable.
Yeah, incredibly calm. And the reason was he consciously refused to attach his peace of mind to getting a yes or a specific advance. He just focused on what he controlled, writing the best proposal possible.
He systematically pre-accepted any outcome. And to understand why that works, the author introduces this counterintuitive quote from Seneca. "Cease to hope, and you will cease to fear."
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the first time I read Cease to Hope, my brain completely rejected it. We're conditioned from birth that hope is the ultimate virtue. We have posters in schools saying, never lose hope. Without hope, aren't we just pessimistic nihilists?
It is jarring, but you have to look at the psychological architecture of hope and fear. Seneca argues they aren't opposites. They are identical emotional states wearing different masks. They both belong to a mind suspended in anxious projection about the future.
Break that down. How is hope a form of anxiety?
Think about specific hope. When you say, I hope I get this promotion, you construct a rigid vision of the future. The moment you attach your desire to that specific outcome, you instantly give birth to the fear that reality won't comply. By demanding an outcome from an unpredictable universe, you generate the terror of disappointment.
Wow, so specific hope is basically just fear disguised in a nicer outfit. It's a demand on an indifferent universe.
Yes. The Stoics support a broad faith in your own resilience, knowing you can handle whatever happens. But they oppose that fragile, specific hoping that turns you into a nervous wreck refreshing your email.
Okay, logically that tracks. But how do we practically rewire that? If I'm waiting on a job interview, how do I stop the hope-fear cycle without becoming numb?
The author uses a great linguistic tool from Susan Jeffers. You shift from hoping to wondering.
Wondering.
Yeah, instead of I hope I get this job, which triggers fear, you change the script to I wonder what my new job will be.
Oh, that's fascinating. It reminds me of a GPS. Hoping is screaming at the steering wheel, demanding green lights. Wondering is just putting the address in and saying, let's see what route we take today.
Perfect analogy. I hope is a frantic attempt to control the uncontrollable. I wonder. Completely relinquishes that. It replaces desperate demand with intellectual curiosity. You become a fascinated audience member watching your own life unfold.
It instantly deflates the pressure. But we can wonder about the future all day, and eventually, reality is going to break down right in front of us in the present moment, usually resulting in a massive surge of anger. Which brings us to the messy present. The book has this story that I just felt in my bones.
There's a washing machine.
The washing machine. It's 10 p.m. The author's tired, wants to wash his favorite sweater, throws it in for a 60-minute cycle. An hour later, the machine is silent, flashing an error code.
The universal symbol of domestic doom.
Right. He opens it. The drum hasn't drained. The sweater is drenched, weighs 10 pounds. Anger bubbles up. So he hauls this dripping mass to the bathtub and starts manually wringing it out with his bare hands, like a cowboy in a Western washing gear in a river.
The imagery is just so absurd.
And it escalates. His ego is bruised, so he decides to fix the machine right then. He gets his tools, starts dismantling it. By midnight, he's sweating, heart hammering, blood boiling.
Yeah.
And he has this epiphany. This was a trivial inconvenience, but he let it hijack his nervous system and steal his peace.
And that physical hijacking is what Stoicism prevents, which aligns perfectly with neurobiology. The text brings up Seneca again, who noted that anger is almost always more destructive to us than the original injury that provoked it.
The broken pump didn't elevate his heart rate. His interpretation did.
Exactly. When you lose your temper over a wet sweater, your brain signals your adrenal glands to release a spike of cortisol and adrenaline. Evolutionarily, that cortisol dump is great if you encounter a predator. It preps your muscles for sprinting and shuts down digestion.
Which is great for outrunning a bear, but a disaster when fighting a Maytag appliance.
It's a profound mismatch. That midnight cortisol spike fragments your sleep, suppresses your immune system, raises your blood pressure. You are inflicting cellular damage on your own organs over a piece of cotton. You're doing the punishing yourself.
So how do we intercept that? Do we just suppress the anger?
Suppression is flawed. The author suggests cognitive reframing. Instead of being your own antagonist, you have to become your own comedian.
Your own comedian.
Yes. When you're wringing out a sweater with raw fury at midnight, you have to cultivate the meta-awareness to step outside yourself and observe the sheer comedy of it. Laughter diffuses the cortisol response. It brings your rational brain back online. You realize an error code is unworthy of your finite emotional bandwidth.
You realize the joke is on you and laugh at the punchline. But what if the frustration is chronic? Like the slow, grinding monotony of daily life. Traffic, emails, the same walls. The text mentions Seneca's friend Lucilius, who was deeply bored and depressed by his daily life. Our instinct is to travel, right? Move cities. Does a vacation actually fix anything?
Seneca's response was brutal. He basically asked, why are you shocked travel hasn't cured your sadness? You are packing your own mind in your suitcase.
Wow. It's like trying to fix a bad Wi-Fi connection by changing rooms when the router's in your backpack.
That is exactly it. The text uses the hedonic treadmill to explain why geographic cures fail. If you move to a pristine beach in Bali, you'll feel euphoric for 3 weeks. But then the brain habituates. The beach becomes normal. And if you haven't restructured your internal framework, All your original anxieties just unpack themselves right there on the sand.
You can't outrun your own psychology.
You can't. The geography is irrelevant. The mindset is the only variable. The solution is exactly where you are sitting. You need to radically alter the lens through which you interpret your circumstances.
Which is hard because booking a cheap flight is way easier than untangling your own neuroses. But if we can't run, we have to sit down, face our minds, and study them like an architect examining a blueprint.
And this demands rigorous self-observation, which modern society actively avoids through digital distraction.
The author points to Marcus Aurelius. He was the Roman emperor, incredibly powerful, yet he kept a deeply introspective journal. He actively questioned the utility of his mind. What is my mind doing right now? Am I using it for something noble?
The psychological sophistication there is immense. He viewed his mind as a tool needing constant calibration, not an absolute authority.
The author translates this to a modern context with his own stock trading. He kept a trading journal, but tracked his emotional state, not just profits. He noticed this toxic urge to average down on a losing stock.
Which is a perilous psychological trap for an investor.
Exactly. You buy at 50, it drops to 30, and your brain screams, buy more, you'll prove everyone wrong. By journaling, he realized it wasn't a strategy, it was raw greed and his ego refusing to admit a mistake. By observing the flawed logic, he stopped the behavior.
The text categorizes this by dividing activities into primary and secondary. Primary activities are the structural beams health, deep connection with family, meaningful work. Secondary activities are the friction, doom-scrolling, office gossip, binge-watching. If you don't discipline your mind, the secondary activities inevitably cannibalize the primary ones.
And the antidote is aggressive, single-minded focus. He mentions Jesse Livermore, an early 1900s Wall Street trader. He would lock himself in a quiet room for 15 minutes of pure, uninterrupted thought to escape the noise of the brokerage. 15 minutes. Imagine what he'd think of Slack notifications pinging every 4 seconds.
It illustrates how rare and valuable sustained attention is.
The book also brings in David Goggins. Goggins argues that sustained greatness demands a focus that borders on obsession, and he admits it destroys the balance in your life.
Which is highly controversial today.
Oh, deeply. We are sold this utopian dream of work-life balance. Crush it at work, hit the gym, cook an organic dinner, read to your kids, get 8 hours of sleep every single day. So what does this mean for the listener? Is Goggins right? Do we have to sacrifice balance?
The author synthesizes this beautifully. You can have it all, but not all at the same time.
It's sequencing again.
Yes. Attempting to balance everything daily usually results in exhausting mediocrity across the board. You end up stressed at work and mentally absent at home.
Like turning every burner on the stove to high. You just burn the house down.
Exactly. The Stoic framework requires accepting that meaningful progress in one direction requires temporary sacrifice in another. The author went all in on 3 pillars: work, exercise, family. He accepts that his social life will wither, he'll miss parties, he'll ignore pop culture. He intentionally embraces an unbalanced season to execute his primary goals.
Consciously choosing what to neglect, that's liberating. You're going to drop a ball anyway. You might as well choose which one instead of feeling guilty. Okay, so we've fortified the inner citadel. We know how to hoard attention, diffuse anger, and focus. Now it's time to open the gates and step into the outer world. Wealth, status, the games we play in society.
This is where Stoicism faces its most rigorous stress test against capitalism.
Because there's a myth that Stoicism requires poverty, but the text obliterates that. It's perfectly fine to build massive wealth as long as you earn it honestly and never let it define your self-worth.
It's the difference between owning your assets and your assets owning you.
The author tells this embarrassing story. When his business first generated big money, he wanted to signal his status. So he bought a top-of-the-line VW Touareg with a V10 diesel engine. He notes, with totally retrospective irony, that this SUV had enough torque to literally tow a 747 jumbo jet down a runway.
Very logical for a daily commute to an office.
Right. Completely absurd. But he admits he drove it purely for ego inflation. When strangers complimented it, he'd absorb the compliment as if he had achieved something magnificent, rather than just signing a lease. He confused the object with his identity.
The Stoics would identify that as a tragic miscalculation of human value.
The text ties this to the GameStop Reddit traders, Biggie Smalls, more money, more problems, and Warren Buffett saying it takes 5 minutes to ruin a 20-year reputation. The pursuit of capital without character is dangerous.
Seneca's perspective is vital here because he was astoundingly wealthy. He lived in absolute luxury. Yet he engineered a thought experiment. He argued that to calculate your true net worth, you must mentally strip away everything external. If a catastrophe burns your mansion and revokes your titles, what remains? Only your character. If you sacrificed your integrity for the mansion, you are bankrupt the moment it vanishes.
The deadly pursuit of money, trading the permanent for the temporary. But practically speaking, how does a modern successful person stay detached? How do you own a luxury car without it owning you?
The author extracts a highly specific mind trick. You train your mind to view everything you own as merely borrowed from the universe.
Borrowed, like a library book.
Exactly. Think about how you treat a valuable tool you borrow from a neighbor. You use it, appreciate it, take care of it, but you never trick yourself into thinking you hold the deed to it. You know the neighbor will ask for it back, and you'll hand it over without throwing a tantrum.
Because your identity wasn't merged with it.
Right. The Stoics apply this to everything. Your house, your portfolio, your career title, even your relationships and your physical body. You are a temporary custodian. You maintain a readiness to hand them back when the lease expires. If the market crashes, you don't despair. You recognize the loan has simply been called in.
The loan has been called in. That eradicates the toxic entitlement of what we think we deserve. And that brings us to society. We don't practice this in a vacuum. When you pursue success, you bump into others doing the same. Some will achieve things faster than you, which breeds the ugliest human emotion, envy. So the final section, society, envy, and the formal dinner of life.
Mastering your own mind is child's play compared to navigating others?
Epictetus has this brilliant analogy. He says we should view our pursuit of success as if we're attending a highly structured, elegant, formal dinner party.
It's a masterful visualization for patience.
I picture a massive table at a wedding. Servers are walking around with trays of food. If the dish you want hasn't reached you, you don't panic. You don't tackle the groom for a crab cake. You wait patiently. You take a modest portion. If it runs out before it gets to you, you don't flip the table. You accept it, sip your water, and enjoy the conversation.
The passing tray represents promotions, accolades, financial windfalls.
But it's easy to be patient when everyone is waiting. What happens when the guy next to you gets a massive plate and you feel that hot spike of envy? How does the Stoic process professional jealousy?
The author extracts a Stoic hack for this. It's like psychological judo. Envy is draining. You witness success, your ego is threatened, and you try to devalue them. The Stoic strategy from Seneca is to flip the script. Instead of resenting them, you extract actionable energy from their success.
Wait, how does that work? If my neighbor buys a $250,000 Ferrari, how do I extract positive energy from his car?
By using rational analysis. Instead of obsessing over the Ferrari, interrogate the virtues that acquired it. What character traits did he exhibit? Did it require extreme risk, a decade of hard work? Courage. Isolate the virtues and absorb them as a blueprint. Tell yourself, if he can apply that courage, I am equally capable of applying it to my goals. Their success becomes proof of what's possible, not a threat to your status.
Jedi-level emotional alchemy. You consume their success as fuel. But what about the opposite? Dealing with negative people or friends spiraling into depression? Emotional contagion is real. We absorb the moods around us.
This is where Stoic compassion meets Stoic boundaries. Epictetus said when someone is grieving, it's your duty to exhibit outward sympathy, offer support, be wholly present. But he added a strict caveat. You must ensure that you do not inwardly grieve with them.
Which sounds borderline sociopathic to a modern ear. Like, here's a tissue, but I don't actually feel bad for you. It violates our definition of empathy.
It feels cold because we conflate empathy with shared emotional destruction. We think to care, we must bleed when they bleed. The Stoics viewed this as irrational. Think of a rescue operation. If someone is drowning, jumping in and letting them pull you under out of empathy just results in 2 drowned people.
Wow, yeah.
True compassion requires stable ground. You preserve your psychological sanity at all costs. You provide massive assistance without letting their turbulence breach your inner citadel. You maintain objective judgment that their tragedy doesn't dictate your internal state.
You have to be the unmovable anchor. If you both get swept away, you're useless. And to execute all this conquering envy, maintaining boundaries, it hinges on how you treat yourself. The text highlights Seneca saying, I have begun to be a friend to myself.
It's the linchpin of the whole architecture. The internal monologue of the average person is shockingly abusive. We are our own vicious tyrants. We speak to ourselves with a cruelty we'd never tolerate from a stranger.
Like getting furiously angry at ourselves for the washing machine mistake.
Right. But if you can truly become a compassionate friend to your own mind, everything changes. When you dismantle that internal tyrant, a secondary effect ripples outward. You involuntarily become gentler and infinitely more patient with the rest of humanity. The grace you extend to yourself radiates to your spouse, friends, and colleagues.
The ultimate inside-out transformation. You can't be at peace with the outer world if you're at war in your own citadel.
Which brings us to the big takeaway for you, the listener. The mastery of your inner world isn't a retreat. It's not a bunker to hide from reality. It's about forging psychological armor so resilient that you can boldly thrive in the messy outer world without sacrificing your soul.
It is the ultimate reclamation of your personal agency, taking your power back from external events.
Absolutely. Because whether you're prepping for a massive career leap or just trying not to lose your mind when a pipe bursts at midnight, the rule is the same. The power doesn't reside in the event. It resides entirely in the meaning you choose to assign to the event. You hold the pen. And as we close, I want to leave you with a final thought to pull on. We talked about treating everything you own as merely borrowed from the universe, that you are just a temporary custodian.
Right, the library book concept.
If we truly borrow everything from the universe and we are just guests here, how would your goals for tomorrow change if you treated your current life as a temporary vacation rental?
Oh, wow. That changes the whole paradigm.
Would you spend the day complaining about the wallpaper, or would you simply go outside and enjoy the view?
That is something to deeply ponder this week. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. It's been a privilege deconstructing these ideas with you. Good luck out there, and good luck laying the bricks for your own inner citadel.